And for those of you that are joining us from the county, we do have a list of attendees. It has all these little bells and whistles on there, and we can tell who's here. I did, just for safety's sake, because I always like to make sure I wrote people's names down before we came in. So we have you there, and then we check again at the end. So if there's any questions, like I said, put them in the chat. Nobody can be seen. You're just going to see Hong and I. You're the only two people that could be seen and heard. You're all on mute. And if you have any questions, you're going to need to put them into the chat for that reason. So without any further ado, I'm going to get started. I want to be mindful of your lunchtime and the fact that many people are now in the middle of their lunch hour. And I started this program, this Lunch and Learn. I thought I wanted to do a Lunch and Learn program. I know in the past they've been done in my department, and I wanted to do something that people could get involved in, especially the folks that work for the county and might be on their lunch hour, and they could get a little nutrition or wellness nugget while they're eating or sitting at their desk, and it wouldn't take up their entire lunchtime, and they would have that ability and not have to go somewhere. So I think that one thing that's come out of the pandemic is certainly the fact that these type of things are now being done. So hopefully we can continue this. We're going to have it the last Thursday of every month. I'm going to give it a try and see how we do with numbers. And so far it looks pretty good. We have 25 on the call now, and there was 30 registered. So that's a good start, I guess. And we're hoping to continue it. I will do September. We're going to do one the last Thursday of the month, again at lunchtime. And then again in October, the last Thursday of the month. If you go onto our website, there'll be information there that you can find to register. And I know also Josie sends out the emails from the county for everyone to register. I'm not going to do them in November because I don't think anybody really wants to come to a wellness talk at noon on Thanksgiving. So I'm not going to do it then. And same with December, we won't have one, but then we'll start back up in January. So you can look for those to be something that I'm continually trying to do. And again, we're going to work on having those recordings there. So if you want to go back and watch them later. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that? Yep. Okay, great. So as most of you know, my name is Christine Zellers, and I'm the educator / assistant professor for Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Cape May County. And I work for the Family and Community Health Sciences Department. And our department focuses on evidence-based wellness, nutrition, chronic disease prevention, and fitness education for the community. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is part of Rutgers University. As a land-grant university, all the land-grant universities have extension offices, and in New Jersey, that's us, and we are charged with going out and educating the community. So that is our role. Today, we have 3 objectives we're going to look at. The title of the session is Food Label 411, and I'm going to clarify that a little bit in the next slide. So what we're going to cover today is how to read a food label or a nutrition facts label. And we're going to tell the secret ingredients of a label. So we're going to do a little detective work and find out what things are in the label that we can look at, not just the nutrition facts label, but the whole package. And then, we're going to look at clues from other parts of the packaging labels. So it's not just about the nutrition facts label. They're really important and we need to know about those, and I'll go into great detail about those, but there's going to be some more information about the whole package on packaged goods, because there are a lot of different clues and things that you can look for while you're eating a packaged food. So one of the things I'm going to start out with today is we're going to open up with a poll. Let me see, hopefully. I'm going to stop sharing a second. All right. Can you see the poll yet? No, okay. Okay. I know some folks are joining us via telephone, and I have your numbers recorded in there, so that's great. And if you can, unfortunately, you can't participate in the poll, but if you're calling in on the phone, but if the others that are on the call could go ahead and take that, just gives me an idea of what you're already doing. So I have a comparison at the end of what you've learned and what knowledge you might already have. So it looks like so far we have a lot of people that are already reading the nutrition food labels. That's great to know. I'll give you some more information. I know my colleague Sandra just did, was it Sandra? No, it was Michelle. Michelle just did a presentation that was delayed because of the storm that went through New Jersey last Friday. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of different information than what she provided. And I tried to steer my conversation in that direction so we have additional information and not just nutrition facts label information. I have about another minute and a half. So if you have not started, I see that there's about 3 people that didn't start the questionnaire yet. So if you could, that would be great. All right, it looks like we're the same 3 have not answered, and perhaps they're the folks that were calling in. So I'm going to close down the poll now. All right, and we're going to go back to sharing. All right, you see my screen again? Yeah, okay. All right, so I just wanted to clarify as I'm speaking, so you're understanding I'm talking about 3 different things because label will be applied certainly throughout the conversation. But nutrition facts labels is the first slide you see, or the first picture you see here. And that's the information that we're going to learn about what's in the product and what that contributes to our needs, our dietary needs during the day. And then the second picture there is the ingredients label. So that gives us a list of what is in the food. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about the packaging label, which is all the different information that people put on, like almost little advertising now. So that could be very well be information you're interested in or is important to you if you have an allergy, something like that. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that too, if those things are important. I saw somebody had just typed in the chat that the poll didn't open for you. I'm sorry about that. It's okay. I appreciate you letting me know though. All right, so we're going to I thought it was important to give you a little bit of history about the nutrition facts label. So that's that first label that we saw that has all the nutrition information on it. And it goes back a little ways. Nutrition's an ever-changing science. People always say to me, oh, they used to say this and now they say that. And I think that, been around the block a while. I've seen all the different phases come in where, it was no fat, then we went to no carbs. We're always taking things out and trying to find what works for our lifestyle and that time period. But what we find is that the needs of the American public change as chronic diseases develop, and you'll hear me say that a couple times probably today. So our dietary needs change. Sometimes we're lacking in certain things as a society, so that changes. So nutrition's ever changing, and I know one of the things that always stuck with me about that point is that the recommended the dietary guidelines suggest that we eat fish twice a week. Well, if everyone in the United States eats fish twice a week, there's not enough fish. So those kind of things happen, and those changes evolve and happen, and that's why nutrition's an ever-changing science. So you want to keep that in mind. And it's ever changing also because everybody's different, and nobody's really going to hand you a set of twins and say, feed this one badly, feed this one well. So it's always developing and changing. And the nutrition facts label is a reflection of those changes, the history of it and how that's come out. So back in 1941 to 1966, there was no real labeling or nutrition facts or anything like that. They were just required to put particular dietary needs caused by physical, pathological, or other conditions on the labeling. And that's according to the Institute of Medicine in the United States. So there wasn't any big things going on in that time frame in that 1941 to 1966. Then in the 1960s, there was a lot more food and a lot more packaged food coming onto the market. So historically, if you go back, women were in the home, and I'm not I'm not being anti-feminist. That's just a fact, the history that, women weren't in the home for the most part, or were in the home for the most part. And then during World War II, they started to enter the workforce in a lot greater capacity because that was needed in our country. And when that happened, there was a need for quick packaging or quick preparation food. So packaged food became a lot more available, and those quick answers, because people needed those solutions. So again, you can see how it's developed around what we need as a society and how food changes that way. And then what did I miss here? Oh, in 1969, people started to say, hey, we want to know what's in this packaged food we're eating. So the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, was tasked with coming up with a system to identify the nutritional quality of foods, and that made them then institute that food makers provide truthful information on consumer content for products. So that's interesting too, because some of you may or may not remember when certain things were allowed to be said. And I can remember my mother, I think it was High C, they had 10% juice on the label. And my mom thought that was really good because it was 10% juice. So we'll talk about the labeling things in a little bit, but they wanted people wanted more truth in what was actually in their product. So that's when things started to change, and the FDA kind of was pulled into there. In 1972, the FDA created a format to start implementing regulations on nutrition labels, and that included voluntary, remember that, labeling, unless the product made specific claims. So if it was making a specific claim, that it could cure heart disease or whatever, it had to have those ingredients in there to show that. So they made it a little bit more difficult for people, but still, it was not mandated, it was voluntary. Then in 1973, they created a label that contained some vitamin and minerals, USDA recommended things, and it also had calories, grams of protein on it, fat, those type things. So they were added in 1973. Then not a lot changed in the late 70s. They then mandated in the late 70s that this all come up and it has to be on the label. Things have to be showing on the label, and they wanted to improve the label. Around the 1980s, food manufacturers reverted back to the fact that in 1930, they were able to say and do whatever they wanted and advertise their product as they like for its benefits. So in the 80s, they started wanting to be able to do that again. So there was a little bit of change to the way things were manufactured and done at that point. And it also was the same time that the Surgeon General was starting to make a lot of recommendations around the fat content in products. So you can see things are changing and evolving, the needs are changing and evolving. And then in 1989, more advanced labeling started to be used by the Surgeon General. And that was based on the fact that they were attributing a high fat diet to some coronary diseases and chronic diseases. So then it started to take shape as more of a mandated action. In the 1990s, Nutrition Labeling and the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act came into effect. That's also called the NLEA. And that was instituted as legislation, and it put forth like 50 years of nutrition labeling and gave us the basis of a healthy diet component. So it started making it look like this is what we need to have a healthy diet on the nutrition facts label, and this is how we are going to make this happen. And then in 1993, nutrition labels were mandated finally and put through. So there was not a lot of change, like big changes, but there was little gradual changes. And again, they were reflections of what was going on. We discovered high fat content could be linked to coronary heart disease. So let's start letting the public know that this could have a high fat content in it. So now we're going to flash forward 20 years later, and we have now this new food label that came out. And I wanted to go over some of the information on this. There's been a makeover, and I wanted to just talk about what we're reading in here. So the new food label is supposed to make it easier to make more informed food choices. And that's really what the label's for. It's supposed to tell you what is going into your body and how that contributes to your health needs, okay? So some people have dietary needs that are allergies. Some people have dietary needs because they have high blood pressure, so they might need lower sodium products. or they might have type 2 diabetes, or they might have chronic heart disease. So there's all different types of need, and these labels are there to help provide that for you. This information reflects updated scientific information, which includes the links between chronic disease, obesity, and heart disease. So they base this new label on what Americans are doing now and what we're challenged with now and what our lifestyle is like now. So let's do a little review of what we're reading, because you look at this and everybody's like, yeah, I read the food labels, and I'll say to them, well, how many teaspoons of sugar is in? And they go, because, you know, sometimes you don't know what a gram, how much a gram of total sugar is. So let's talk a little bit about that. So right here at the top is one of the things that was changed. They changed the serving size. So now it's bolded. And I just want to point out that this measurement is not how much you should eat, but it's an average. So they polled Americans and they found that whatever this product is, on average, people eat 2/3 of a cup. Now, that's not to say that you need 2/3 of a cup, but this is the average. And again, all these are based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And as I've said in talks before, sometimes you're going to need more and sometimes you're going to need less, depending on your age, your activity level, your gender. They're all factors that contribute to what you personally need. And because people always ask me how to figure that out, I'm going to put at the end of the slideshow, and then I will email it out to everybody too. The choosemyplate.gov/resource/myplate plan, which you can go into and you can examine, plug in all your information, and they'll give you the count of what you need for calories. And then you can base what you're looking at on that. And it'll give you a better idea of what your dietary needs are personally. Because think of how many labels they would need. Probably just on the call that we have today with 25 people on it, we'd need 25 different labels probably, because everybody has a different activity level and a different function, how they function in their lifestyle. So this is just an average, but it's giving us what this label is telling us is that if you have 2/3 of a cup, these are the things that are on here. Then it's also giving us serving size. So we know that there are 8 servings in this package. So whatever it is, there's 8 of them in there. And if you were to eat the whole package, then it would total 18, the calories on it would be 1,840 if you ate the whole package. So this is just one serving. The information below is just one serving. It's not if you eat the whole package. I used to have a friend that said they made one, I won't name the name. There's a cookie that comes in a sleeve, and he said that you're supposed to eat the whole package because it's in a little package. I'm like, no, that's not the case. So you have to remember, you have to look at the number of servings in the container as well. That's really important. Here we go. Serving size is not a recommendation of how much to eat. All right. And here again is the website. If you want to jot that down, I'll put that up again at the end. And next, we're going to talk about calories. So calories are now also displayed in a larger, bolder font to make them, noticeable to everyone. Calories are energy. So they total up things like fat, carbohydrates, protein, and alcohol. And that's how much energy we're putting into our body. The reason there's such an obesity crisis in the United States is because we tend to put high energy or high calorie products into our body and not expend what we need to maintain a healthy weight. So when you're looking at the calories, keep in mind that they're energy. And if you're putting a lot of calories in, then you want to burn some calories. So you might need to do some exercise or some physical activity to make sure that you're getting rid of those calories and able to maintain a healthy weight. So that's very important to keep that in mind. All right, next down the side here, the daily values have been updated. So the daily values show how much of a particular nutrient contributes to the daily daily diet value of that serving size. So for instance, in this product, you can see that vitamin D is 10%. Of the vitamin D you need for the day. So you need to be aware that the numbers don't add up and down. Like it's not a total running down. Like don't look at this product and say, oh, I'm getting 10% plus 5%, that's 15. That's not the way it works. It goes across and it's for each and every individual line. So 50, you're getting, let's see, what was I just talking about? vitamin D. So vitamin D down at the bottom there, you can see that you're getting the 10% of that in your daily, out of this product, you're getting 10% of what your diet is needed for that. I also want to point out that there's certain things on the nutrition fact label that don't have a daily percent value. So you want to look at those as well, and make sure some of those, the reason that there's not a daily percent value is because we don't necessarily need those. We don't need trans fat, for example. That's just written in the 0 grams. Okay. But I also want to point out that some of them do have grams, and added sugar is one of the additions to this label, which I think is great. People used to ask me all the time, sugar, how do I know? What does that mean? So what they've done, again, because we are, as Americans, consuming a high sugar diet, we're looking at the amount that is in there. And I think it's important to know that the total sugars could be some natural and some added, because some products have naturally occurring sugar. So you want to look at that. And then this package tells us that there's 10 grams of added sugar in this. So we know that 4 grams is equivalent to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you look at the 10 grams, it's about 2.5 grams of added sugar. 2.5 teaspoons of added sugar in this product. So you want to be very cautious of that and aware of that. That's an important factor on there. They added some new things in there. Vitamin D is new because that was one of the things we weren't getting enough of. And also potassium was added, not getting enough of. So they're, again, looking at what the American needs are and how we are moving through the products. Let me see if I missed anything else. It shows, again, down the side, the percentage of these and what you're getting. So overall, knowing what is important to you and what, if your doctor's telling you that you have too much sodium in your diet, which is salt, then you want to look at the sodium, get the recommendation, 2,300 milligrams per day. And then you want to make sure that you're totaling them up and not getting too much sodium from the product. So that's a good way. This label is really a clue for you to be able to know what's going into your body. I wanted to show you also, you might see, this is just a little clip of it, but you might see on some labels, there's 2 side by side. So in this one, you need to look and know that the snack is 1/3 of a cup measurement, and they're giving you the amounts for that. And then on the other side, they're giving you 2/3 of a cup for a whole serving, that they're considering a whole serving. Again, it's going to be based on the differences in people's lives and their activity levels and things like that. But these are what are showing here. All right, so that's a little bit about the nutrition facts label. And I also, when I work with children, I always tell them that they need to be food detectives. So look at the whole package. The ingredients label is just as important as the nutrition label. The nutrition facts label is going to tell us what is going into our body and what it contributes to us maintaining a healthy weight and healthy lifestyle. But the ingredients are really going to give us some keys as to what is in there. And that's equally as important. When you're reading the ingredients label, the first 4 contents are what there's the most of. So for instance, in this product, you can see that it's white beans is the product, and it's prepared cannelli beans, water, salt, and calcium chloride. So the first thing I would do in reading these 4 ingredients was say, if I have a salt problem, if my doctor told me to lay off the salt, I'm going to have to go back to the nutrition label and compare how much sodium is in this product. So that'll give you a clue too as to what to look for, because if those first 4 ingredients, that's what there's the most of in there. If you look at ketchup, I think sugar or corn sweetened syrup or something is like in the first 4 ingredients. And there's a lot of sugar in ketchup. And I always would ask the kids that too. I try to make them guess what the product was from the ingredients and the nutrition label, and they could never get ketchup. They were like jelly, jam. They thought it was something really high because people don't really think that there's sugar in ketchup, but there is. So it pays to read this part of the label too. And then the other thing the ingredients label tells us is how many ingredients are in there. So I always try to eat as many whole foods as I can. If you're buying a packaged food, it's probably not going to be a whole food. But if there's only a few ingredients, it might be better than those products that have a lot of ingredients and chemicals and preservatives in them. So look at that. Look at how many ingredients are in there. You also want to know that potato chips don't have a lot of ingredients, but they're not the best for us. So you can look at the ingredients on them and then transfer back over to that nutrition facts label and realize that, yeah, these aren't the best for me. There's a lot of salt and fat in them. So that's a good way to compare to. The other thing the ingredients labels tell us is what hidden names are in there. So sugars, for instance, sugars can show up in the label as syrup, maltose, sucrose, glucose, lactose, molasses, honey, and even sometimes as nectar, as in agave nectar. So you want to make sure that you're checking out for what those hidden sugars are. You might not right away think, oh, there's no sugar in this, or it could be a sugar substitute that might not go well with your lifestyle. So you want to look for those things. Generally, anything that ends in OSE, OS, is a sugary product. Salt's another one that can be identified as other names. You might see salt, you might see sodium, you might see sodium chloride. You can see on this bean label here that it says calcium chloride. And calcium chloride is a salt substitute that's supposed to help reduce the salt content, but again, it's a substitute. So if you're trying to stay away from chemicals and substitutes for sugar and salt, then you're going to know what you want to know what that is. It's good. I always look things up. If I look at something, I think, what is this? Then I usually will give it a little Google and see, just so I know, because it's good to know what you're putting in your body. And it's important to know what you're putting in your body. And the ingredients label is going to tell us this. So let's talk a little bit about the packaging now. The packaging a lot of times will have things like low fat, cage-free, no trans fat, whole grain, high in protein, right? They'll say different, they'll make different claims. And remember when I talked about the food packaging label, how they said that they wanted to go back to being able to make those claims. Well, they were important because it's like a little bit of advertising right on the package. So you might see fat-free or 10% juice, I mentioned that one, gluten-free, no sugar added. They're all different labels that could pop up, and there's many, many more. That's just a few of them. So it's important when you look, first you're going to look at the nutrition facts label, then you're going to look at the ingredients, but look at what it's advertising and think about that. Think about if you're being misled when they say some of these things. So let's take a look at this one and understand the label. You can see here that this says it's a whole grain bread. But when you go back over to the ingredients label, it says it's enriched wheat flour. And enriched wheat flour means they broke apart the whole grain, they ground it all up, they added some vitamins and minerals in there and put it back. So the first four, remember, are the things that there's most of. So the first thing in here is an altered flour, which is not a whole grain. However, you can see down here as the 10th whole grain wheat flour is in there. So they're able to say that it's whole grain. So if you really want to check that out and know, again, look at what the package says on the front and then look at the other. It does say white made with whole grain. So it's not saying it's a whole grain, but it gives you the impression, you know, if you're looking to try to add whole grains, you know, we want half our grains to be whole grains every day. You might be thinking you're doing something really good when you're adding more of a white product than a whole grain product in there. So if you really want to know, this was put out by the Whole Grain Council, and they put this on the side of packaging. So this is a good, like, quick check that it's a whole grain. So they want you to eat 48 grams or more of whole grain daily. And so they're putting this on the packaging so you know that it is a whole grain. So in closing, I just want to go over a couple of more things here. We have and how cross-checking can be really important and significant to what you're having in your lifestyle. This is all three of these are from the same product. It's from a can of pineapples. And in talking about the packaging and how packaging affects us, this has several different claims in the first slide and the first picture here. It has non-GMO project verified. And I thought, well, what is that? So I looked it up, and they are actually, the non-GMO project is a nonprofit that an organization can go to and get certified that their products are not genetically modified, and they pay to then put it on their label. So if that's important to you, find out what the source is, make sure it's a reliable source that they're advertising. You're not just throwing something up there, so that you know you have a non-genetically modified product. So again, I went to that website to check that out. It also says that has all natural fruit in it. Well, pineapple is an all natural fruit. It does verify that it's got the pineapple in there, so that's a good thing. But what does all natural mean? It's an interesting question, right? How do you define all natural? Poison ivy is all natural, but you don't necessarily want to pop a bunch of poison ivy into your body, right? So all natural is a very wide and broad term, and it's often overused or used inappropriately. So check out what that ingredient is to make sure that it's all natural, because again, all natural is a buzzword. You know, no GMO, non-GMO, it's a buzzword. So when those things are popular, advertisers are putting them on to attract you to that product. So go to that label and make sure that's what it says. I was comparing in the grocery store once, and I saw that something said it was organic, but then when I looked at it, only one thing in there was organic, and then it was full of chemicals. So make sure that you check that out for yourself so you have that information. Next, it says it's rich in vitamin C, right? And it has 18 milligrams of vitamin C. So if you had 25, or it has 20%. If you had 25% vitamin C, then it would be high in vitamin C. But I guess you could say it's rich then. Again, it's like a little bit of a play on words. Like, yeah, it's rich. It's not nothing, but you know, it's not the highest. It's not 25%. So, you know, you want to look at those things too and what they're telling you. And then it also says, there's 25%. It also says that it's naturally gluten-free. This is important. Pineapple usually is naturally gluten-free, but there are a lot of products out there that house things like for people with allergies like myself, gluten and nuts and things like that. So you want to be cautious and aware of those. And make sure that it's correct by checking the food label, cross-checking the food label. And then you also want to know that it's BPA packed, which means there's not cancer-causing packaging. And in this can, there was not, apparently. So that's other things you can look at. So as a whole, there's a lot. These are my my resources. As a whole, there are a lot of things that you need to look at on a package, and it can be rather confusing. But at the same time, it's important to know what you're putting in your body, and every different label holds a clue. So I'm going to, I know I'm getting at time now, and I want to be very mindful of that since it is lunchtime. And I'm going to, these are where you can find us, Facebook and our websites. I will email out the information on where to find the different, the Choose My Plate. So you have that, and I'll send along some other info. And then I've just opened the last poll. And as we're going through that last poll, Fong, is there any questions that popped up during, or does anybody have any questions for me? One thing, when I make all these notes and then I fail to read them, but I did want to go back and tell you, I'm just looking for the one. It's considered high, the percentages, if it's 25%, and I'm just looking, I can email this to you too, at my notes. Okay, so with calories, a rule of thumb from the FDA is 100 calories on a product is considered moderate and 400 is considered high. So keep that in mind when you're looking at products. So 100 calories is considered moderate and 400 is considered high. So they're important things to know. That's an important thing to know as you're looking at the products. And then the other one, I wanted to tell you that if a percentage of a daily value on the label, if it's 5% per serving, it's considered low, and 25 or greater is considered high. So again, when you looked at that vitamin C in the pineapple, it was 20. So I guess you can call it rich. Yeah, they're playing with words to keep us happy there. We have about 7 people that didn't start the poll yet. Oh, 6. Does anybody have any questions for me? I thought it was interesting too, in some of the research I was doing, they had used the example that they made to bring home the serving size. They made the serving size for a soda 12 ounces because it used to be 8 because they found that's what people are drinking. So again, they're not recommending you drink more soda. It's just what we do. And it's probably because of the packaging size. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the labeling, so you have that information. All right, we have about 30 seconds left on the poll, and I'll let everybody get back to their day. I appreciate you all jumping on the call today, and I hope you learned some good information. I'll tell you to look out for the next one, which will be the end of September, the last Thursday in September. And we have some other programs coming up on from FCHS, and if you want to take a look at our website, you can find those there. And I will be sure to pass along the attendance to all of the people that attended from the county. Thanks for coming by. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.